Hello, everyone. Today we are going to delve into the 2002 drama thriller film, Unfaithful. Enjoy the viewing experience. Living in the suburbs of New York City, Edward and Connie are a happy and affluent family with their 8-year-old son, Charlie. The boys seem to have everything, but on a rainy day, Connie chose to defy her husband and head into the city for work, preparing for a significant auction in Soho. She ended up in Wendy, New York, where calling a taxi wasn't feasible. Later, she encounters a young man who is struggling with a large pile of books, and they collide, both tumbling to the sidewalk. Feeling embarrassed, Connie attempts to gather the scattered books and asks the man for help in hailing a taxi. Noticing her injured knee, he invites her to his home for treatment. It turns out that he resides in the same building. After tending to her injury, Connie uses the apartment owner's phone to contact her son, trying to maintain the facade of a devoted family woman, despite feeling quite uneasy. This doesn't seem to bother Charlie, who introduces himself. She learns that he is 27 years old and makes a living selling rare books. As Connie prepares to leave, Paul, the young man, offers her a book as a keepsake and even suggests she read a passage from page 15. Connie is touched by the words she reads and leaves his apartment. However, on her way home, her son notices the cut on her knee and snaps funny photos of her in response to her awkward expressions of gratitude. Connie tells her husband about the charming young man named Edward who helped her, and he jokingly suggests sending a bottle of wine to thank him. The next morning, Connie takes a look at the book she borrowed from Paul and finds a business card with his phone number. Once she reaches Central Station, she decides to give him a call but hangs up shortly after. Paul quickly invites Connie over for coffee, and she agrees. Upon her arrival, Paul makes her coffee and shows her a book written in Braille. He even holds her hand while reading, and although she eventually decides to leave, she feels a spark of attraction towards him. Later, she visits Edward at his workplace, greets his colleagues including their friend Bill, and presents her husband with a sweater. She also informs him that she will be working at the auction alongside their friend Bob. That evening, Edward senses that Connie is deep in thought, but he doesn't pursue it further. The following day, Connie makes her way back to Paul's residence, and almost as soon as she arrives, he invites her to dance. Connie realizes that she could end up making a reckless decision and attempts to leave, but when she goes back to retrieve her coat, the man forcefully knocks her down and takes her to his bedroom. On the train ride home, she begins to feel anxious, while Edward encounters his friend Bob and learns that Connie has not mentioned any auction. Connie and Paul continue to meet regularly, and one day he asks her out for lunch. Her husband's subordinate becomes aware of this, and later that evening, Edward joins Connie in the bathroom, but she turns him down, claiming she needs to visit the salon for a beauty treatment. Still holding on to hope that his suspicions are unfounded, Edward contacts someone from the salon staff and his fears are confirmed. Later, when Connie arrives at Paul's place, she bumps into some friends who invite her to a nearby cafe. Connie calls her lover to inform him that she will be delayed, but P. Bill's final warning to take better care of his wife prompts him to hire a private investigator to keep an eye on her. The investigator travels to Chicago for a day during which he captures images of Connie and her lover. The woman is so engrossed in her affair that she even neglects to pick up her son from school, causing her to worry about it all night. When the investigator returns, he reveals everything about Connie's meetings with Paul to Edward and provides him with the address along with the photographs. When Connie decides she can no longer endure the situation, she goes to Paul to end their relationship. Outside, she enviously watches them enter the library after witnessing him being confronted by a small girl. When Edward arrives at Paul's house, he finds Connie unexpectedly rushing out the door. The man enters the apartment and meets Paul, who lets Edward in, pours him a drink, and answers all of his inquiries with a calm demeanor. However, these answers inflict deeper emotional wounds on Edward. By the bedside, he is ultimately thrown off balance when he spots a snow globe he had given to his wife, which she later passed on to her lover. Losing control, he seizes the snow globe and strikes Paul twice in the head, then hears the sickening crunch of a skull and collapses in shock at what he has just done. Initially, Edward considers calling the police, but ultimately decides to conceal the evidence, wrapping Paul's body in a carpet and carrying it out of the apartment. When he hears Connie's voice on the answering machine informing her lover that they can no longer deceive their families and that their affair is over, Edward heads to the school play. In the bathroom, he changes into a fresh outfit, discards his stained shirt, and makes his way to the auditorium where Connie is waiting for him. This marks the first instance in quite some time that Edward has displayed any affection towards him. Edward transports Paul's body to the landfill and buries it beneath a heap of refuse. Following this, he takes the car to the car wash. Since that moment, the man has observed that his wife has started to exhibit affectionate feelings towards him again. However, Edward himself is plagued by nightmares. One day, when only Connie and her son are at home, the police arrive and inform her that Paul's wife has reported him missing and that they discovered a note containing Connie's phone number. The woman responds that she barely knew Paul, mentioning she intended to purchase books from him, but her reaction to the news about his wife gives her away. Nevertheless, the police depart, and the family's life momentarily returns to its usual rhythm. A week later, however, the police return to announce that Paul has been found deceased. The detectives inquire if she has ever visited Soho, where Paul resided, and remind her of a traffic citation she received in Soho on the same day she nearly forgot to collect her son from school. She acknowledges that she was there at a cafe with friends. When asked about how she and Paul became acquainted, she mentions it was at a concert, a statement her husband unexpectedly corroborates, stating he was there with her. Noticing the police pressing his wife, Edward takes them outside, allowing her to discuss her experiences privately. The next day, Connie retrieves Edward's coat from the dry cleaners and discovers photographs taken by the detective hidden in the pocket. This revelation leads her to realize that her husband was aware of her affair with Paul. That evening, at a gathering with friends, she sees the snow globe she gifted to Paul back in its original spot. She perceives from Edward's expression that he has disposed of her lover. Left alone, they begin to confront their relationship. The man admits that initially, he contemplated eliminating her. For the following few days, the couple coexists without conflict, yet they are constantly anticipating the police's arrival at their home. One day, Connie discovers a secret compartment within the same snow globe. Years prior, Edward had placed a family photo accompanied by a love note inside it. That evening, she incinerates the photographs the detective had taken. She envisions that on the day she met Paul, she boarded a free taxi and returned home. Edward approaches her and expresses his desire to inform the police about everything, as they can no longer live with the burden of this secret. The school auction that Connie has meticulously prepared for turns out to be a triumph and concludes with a party where she dances with her husband as if it were their final moment together. As they pause on their journey back home, Connie proposes that the entire family adopt new identities and relocate to Mexico to begin anew. They remain at the traffic signal even after it shifts to green, for it is at the police station where their story must ultimately conclude.